Alrighty guys, we're back for something a little different today. We're going to go over 8 different aggro brews for the Brothers War Standard. So what are these brews? Red Warfare, Blast Runner Red, Selesnya Soldiers, White Weenie, Gruul Artifacts, Mono Black Aggro, Izzet Constructs, and last but not least, Boros Modified. Yeah, these are all builds I'm super excited to check out once the set releases. I put these in no particular order, by the way. There are chapters on the video and timestamps down in the description, and while you're down there, make sure to check out that Discord link. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First on the list here, Red Warfare. What do we got in the build? Well, we got 4 Hammer Hands, which I still think is going to be a very important red card. Speaking of important red cards, 4 Kumano faces Kakazan, naturally. We got a new one here, Monastery Swift Spear. Apparently this is a reprint, which is pretty cool. This is a 1 mana, 1/2, haste with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Yeah, this looks disgusting. I can see why there's so much hype around this card. I think it's going to be a very great addition to red. Like, Kumano and Hammerhand are already non-creature spells, and we got a ton more packed in here. Like, for Play with Fires, right? Couple Bitter Reunions in here. This is going to be one that I'm going to check out in a lot of different builds. This is a 2-mana enchantment, so non-creature, right? Whenever Bitter Reunion enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Okay, not bad. It's a pretty cool filtration system. So it also has this bottom ability on here too, where you can pay 1, sacrifice Bitter Reunion. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. I don't know how often that's going to come in handy because in this particular deck, a lot of our creatures already have haste or have ways of getting haste from like Hammerhand, right? Either way, I think it's going to be pretty good. Now we do have a single Feldon Ranom Excavator. I apologize right now for all the name pronunciations, guys, for the new cards especially. This is a 2-mana 2/2 with haste, and it can't block. Okay. Whenever it's dealt damage, exile that many cards from the top of your library, choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Seems pretty good, doesn't it? I mean, it's legendary, and I'm only trying out one in this particular build, but I think that one's going to be worth it. So we got 4 Flame Breathers here. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Flame Breather deals 1 damage to each opponent, and I think Flame Breather just got a whole lot better since now you can pair it in the same deck as the Swift Spear. So you can kind of, you can build that Flame Breather deck, but now you just have a better 1-drop creature to put in there. We also have something on the top end here that just makes Flame Breather absolutely disgusting. So we have a couple lightning strikes to be able to hit the opponent's face and also just act as early removal like the Play with Fire, right? Got 4 Radha's Firebrands because it is a very powerful 2-drop and pairs beautifully with cards like Hammerhand, and that is one of the creatures that could get haste from Hammerhand or the Bitter Reunion, right? Because it doesn't naturally have haste on it. Oh, same with Flame Breather, by the way, but more often than not, you're not attacking with Flame Breather too often anyways, so. We got 3 Chandra Dress to Kill, and that top +1 ability that gets to ping that 1 damage to a target player is actually going to be pretty nasty in here because of a new card, Mechanized Warfare. This is a 3 mana. We got 3 of them in here, by the way. This is a 3 mana enchantment. If a red or artifact source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. Yeah, so that's insane, guys. Oh my goodness. I realize that you got to take a turn to get this onto the board, but like, seriously? Like, the amount of extra damage a mono red deck can do with this, it just seems disgusting, doesn't it? So we want other cards in here that also, can hit the opponent's face. So like, Flame Breather's dealing 2 damage now all of a sudden. Chandra's +1's dealing 2 damage. And of course, on the very, very top end, we have a couple Thundering Raijus to also deal some extra damage off of Warfare. Now, one thing, you guys will have to let me know down in the comments, these do stack, right? I'm pretty sure they do, because it says it deals that much damage +1. So if you got 2 of them on the board, they would both add that +1 to it. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't stack, but sometimes I'm surprised by Magic rulings, so you never know. The mana base, guys. So we do have a Mishra's Foundry here. This is a new one where you can tap it to add a colorless. You can pay 2, and Mishra's Foundry becomes a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn. It's still a land. So I don't know how many of these we actually want in our aggro builds, but I'm going to be testing it out as at least a one of in most of them, or most of them that it actually works in, right? Because creature lands, they used to be pretty important in the last standard, so it seems like this is going to be pretty important here too. There's also a bottom ability here I'm not too worried about. You can pay 1, tap it, target attacking assembly worker gets +2/+2 until end of turn, so that might be enough. That might be worth it to think about 2 of them in a build like this, but yeah. Also have a Crucible of Defiance as well, naturally, and a bunch of other mountains. I believe there's how many lands do I have in the deck? That is, I guess each of these rows have 4. That's funny, guys. I apologize. I should have checked beforehand. That is 23 total land here. So yeah, that's that. Let's go ahead and get into the next one. Up next is Blast Runner Red. What do we got in the build? We got a single experimental synthesizer because there's an artifact theme in here. We got Goblin Blast Runner, which is kind of the keystone of the deck, or what I built the deck around, I suppose. This is a 1 mana 1/2. Goblin Blast Runner gets +2/+0 and has Menace as long as you sacrificed a permanent this turn. So essentially a 3/2 Menace for 1 mana. I think this is a really cool one. Definitely worth trying a build around at least, right? So what else do we got in here to help this card work? Well, 4 Gold Hounds, 1/1 first strike Menace for 1. Tap it, sack it, add 1 mana of any color. So on a turn that you sacrifice Gold Hound, boom, you got a 3/2 Goblin with Menace. It's going to be easy to forget that Menace at first, right? Because it seems pretty stacked. And we also have Sticky Fingers here to help us ramp, get some treasures. And of course, those treasures work because it says if you sacrificed a permanent. So yeah, it doesn't say like non-token permanent or anything like that. So treasures totally work. I think Sticky Fingers is a pretty good one to have here. We got 4 Valdaran Epicures because like I said, we do have that artifact theme, but then also blood tokens. We can sacrifice those. So cool. And Epicure is pretty good, isn't it? We got 4 Voltage Surge, also working with the sacrifice theme and the artifact theme and just working as removal, which is sweet. Got a couple Bitter Reunions in here too, and like I said in the last one, I'm going to be testing out Bitter Reunion in a bunch of different builds because I just think it looks pretty good. And that bottom ability, you can pay 1, sacrifice Bitter Reunion, boom, your Goblin Blast Runners are 3/2 with Menace, right? Now we got 4 Horned Stone Seekers here. So Horned Stone Seeker is a 2 mana 2/2 with Menace. When Horned Stone Seeker enters the battlefield, create a tapped Power Stone token. And of course, these Power Stone tokens are an artifact with, you can tap it to add colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Okay. So other than that, you can use that Power Stone to like activate the Blood token ability or something like that. So that's pretty cool. We got 4 Riveteer's Requisitioners here. It does have that blitz cost if you want to count this as a 3-drop that can go ahead and haste on in, but mainly in here to get us that treasure token. What are we doing with all these extra treasures and blood tokens and all that stuff? Well, we're not ramping into something big. We're using them with Smelter here, and we have 4 of these. It's a 2 mana 2/2 at the beginning of combat. On your turn, you may pay 1. So you could use that Power Stone token that I was talking about, right? And sacrifice an artifact. You can sacrifice that Power Stone token if you'd like, right? If you do, create a 3/1 red construct artifact creature token with haste. This card is just looking for the right deck, and I think this is going to be a perfect one for it. I almost considered like a goblin theme in here, but I think it would have taken away from some of the power of the build. And on the very top end, we have 4 professional face breakers just looking for a deck to go ahead and be broken in, right? So professional facebreaker is pretty nasty in the right build, and paired with like sticky fingers and the menace on Goblin Blast Runner, the menace on Horned Stone Seeker. This ability is actually insane. The bottom ability here, sacrifice a treasure. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. I think all of these cards play very nicely together, don't they? So we have a couple Mishra's Foundries in here. Now, why 2 this time, but not 2 in the other mono red? Mainly because I think it can actually handle having 2 of these early on in the game, where the other one we want a lot of early red sources. I think it would be okay to find a couple Foundries early on. Hopefully, right? It depends. This is definitely going to need some testing, which I was, of course, unable to do as the set did not release yet. We have a Crucible of Defiance in here as well, and I believe 21 total mana then, right? Yeah, no, yeah, 20. I apologize, guys. I gotta start counting my mana before I go over the deck. Yeah, I believe that's 21 total, which is more than enough in a build like this. We're gonna be ramping and all that other great stuff, so we might even want to go down some mana. It depends, right? We need to test the deck somehow, and after we do, you know, this deck might be able to run fine on Arena at like 19 lands, and then we'll be able to squeeze more, maybe like removal or something in here. Either way, I hope you guys liked this one. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, next on the list is Selesnya Soldiers. What do we got in the deck here? Well, we have 3 Citadel Stalwarts. I apologize again for the pronunciation of the new cards, guys. So this is a 1 mana 1/1 Elf Druid Soldier. Nice. Okay, but you can tap this, tap an untapped artifact or creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. This card seems sweet. There are going to be moments where you're going to want to ramp with this, and there's going to be moments where you want to, like, yeah, ramp into a 4-drop, for example, or a couple 2-drops, which would be very valuable in this style of deck. I think this card's going to be really powerful. We have 4 Recruitment Officers. Speaking of really powerful, this is a 1 mana 2/1. You can pay 3 and a white, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So yeah, overall, yeah, just really good card, isn't it? The fact that it's a soldier, the fact that you might not use that ability too often, but there are definitely going to be games where you do use that ability, and sometimes a lot will be banking on it too, as you're looking for like a Brutal Cathar off of it or something. So very powerful 1-drop. Very cool to see that it's a soldier. We have a single Cathar Commando for some artifact and enchantment removal. The flash comes in handy sometimes too, but yeah, we'll see. It's also like a 2 mana 3/1's pretty solid. Got 3 Guardian of New Benalias in here. Very powerful soldier, and it pairs well with 1 card on the top end, which we'll go over in just a second. We got 3 Thalias, naturally. Very powerful soldier. The first strike comes in handy, and being able to slow down your opponent's early game removal, or just slow down some board wipes, it happens to be very powerful. Speaking of slowing down early removal, this pick might seem a little janky. We got a Tomacule Honor Guard here. This is a 2 mana 3/1, and all it has is Ward 2. Hear me out, guys. I think this card's actually pretty good. I think Ward 2 is super solid to have on a 3/1 soldier. How many times do you drop your 2-drop on turn 2 and immediately it gets cut down? Or the opponent drops an Infernal Grasp, or they're playing tempo and they drop the Fading Hope just to slow you down. They're playing mono red, they got the Play With Fires, the Lightning Strikes. Like, how often? Very, very often is the answer. And Ward 2 stops that. So you can get this down on turn 2 and actually keep your board state for a couple turns. I don't know, man. I think this is one of the great reasons to play Selesnya Soldiers as opposed to some of the other picks, but we'll see. Overall, like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it just doesn't have enough on here, but I'm super excited to play with this card. The fact that it's common makes me very happy. Okay, naturally we got 4 Valiant Veterans in here because it is a soldier deck, and being able to buff all the soldiers is going to be huge. We didn't, when we played soldiers last, I don't think we got to use that bottom ability here where we exile it from the grave to put counters on each soldier, but I still think there are going to be moments when you can do that. So we got 4 Brutal Cathars as our main removal in here. Human Soldier Werewolf, yep, works here, and Brutal Cathar happens to be pretty good, huh? Got a couple of Gavany Dawn Guards in here. I needed more ways to kind of like draw cards. These aren't actually draw card abilities like Recruitment Officer and the Dawn Guard. They don't actually draw the card, but you know, they get cards into your hand. And I think squeezing a couple Dawn Guards, while it didn't do a lot the last time I played with it, I think it still might be worth it for, you know, getting extra cards into our hand. Another great reason to try out Selesnya Soldiers is actually King Darien here. 3 mana, 2/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. So another great way to buff your soldier board state, right? But then also it's a human soldier. That's freaking sweet, guys. Okay, new card. We got Siege Veteran. This is a 3 mana, 2/2. Okay, buckle up, guys. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Oh, buddy, it also has another ability on here because this one costs 3 mana. Whenever another non-token soldier you control dies, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Oh my goodness, guys. Holy cow. What? I almost passed out reading it again. All right, well, we'll see how good it actually is because it is just a 2/2. But man, does that do a lot. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, huh? On the very top end, we have a mural, the Shield of Argive. Yeah, I apologize, guys. This is a 4 mana, 3/4 human soldier. During your turn, opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Oh my goodness, that is insane. Dude, soldiers look stacked, don't they? Also has another ability on here for some reason. Whenever Mural attacks, create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. So this can really quickly just beef up your board state, go wide really fast. It's kind of like rabble rousing in a sense, in a weird sense, I guess. But yeah, this card looks insane. It might be worth having like 3 of these on the top end, but we'll see. Like I said, I was unable to actually test any of these because the set isn't out yet. So I guess we have to take all of it, you know, not too seriously, as these decks could change heavily once the set actually releases. Okay, we have a single Sarah Paragon in here, and I think it's going to be worth having. I do. I think Sarah Paragon is a very good card. I think being able to cast back some of our soldiers from the grave could be huge, pairs nicely with new Benelia, but maybe we could ditch the Sarah Paragon for 3 of the shields, but I don't know. I think it's going to be worth having one of on the top end here. In the mana base, guys, we should have 24 total mana here. A couple of them are a Who Endures, just for more ways to get rid of artifacts and enchantments. It's going to be up to you. This could just be another forest, for example, right? Got the new Brushlands, so that's going to be very helpful for Selesnya Aggro, right? We have a single seat as well as a single Mishra's Foundry. And it's kind of like I said with the Foundry. I don't know how many of these we actually want in our aggro decks. I don't know how often it's going to like hold us back. I don't think having 1 in here is going to hold back the mana at all, especially since we have like Stalwart here too. But I don't know. We'll see, right? Overgrown Farmland, naturally, a couple forest, and most of the deck, or most of the lands are plains because, yeah, this one heavily leans towards white. Okay, hopefully I went over this one well enough. There was actually a lot packed in here, and yeah, we're mostly going to see like mono white soldiers and especially Azorius soldiers as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and go over the next deck. All right, it's time to go over our white weenie build. What do we got in the deck? Well, we got 4 Hopeful Initiates, very powerful 1-drop. We got a couple hotshot mechanics just because it's a 1-mana 2/1. There's no vehicles in here, but that's okay. Got 4 Recruitment Officers, a 1-mana 2/1 with an awesome ability for 3 and a white. You can look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I'm reading that again for anyone who may be skipping around the video, by the way, guys. I know we just went over it in the Soldiers build. Got a couple Cathar Commandos for artifact and enchantment removal, and the flash is going to come in handy because we have other flash creatures in here as well as some instant speed removal too. Got 4 Intrepid Adversaries. This deck is definitely going to know how to go wide, and we need great, powerful ways to actually boost that wide board state. Also, Adversary happens to be really good because a 2-mana 3/1 lifelink does a lot, doesn't it? Like that lifelink kind of holds you on to a lot of battles that you probably shouldn't be holding on to. We got 4 Resolute Reinforcements. This is a 2-mana 1/1 that you guys are probably seeing a lot of recently. It has Flash. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. And you guys may have noticed that this didn't actually make the cut for the soldier deck. And I don't know, we'll see if that was a good decision or not. I do think it's going to be very excellent in this particular build though. Got 3 Soul Partitions, and this could probably be whatever removal you want it to be. Make sure it's instant speed though, that way it pairs well with all these flash creatures. But I think this one's going to be pretty solid in a deck like this. Because this deck is going so fast that a little bit of tempo with Soul Partition is definitely not going to hurt. So a 2-mana instant speed, exile target non-land permanent. Oh my goodness, just non-land permanent, guys. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast by an opponent this way costs 2 more to cast. So yeah, a little bit of a tempo piece here. Imagine this, right? You're swinging in on a wide board state and you can just exile like their wedding announcement that was buffing their board. Like after their blocks and everything. I don't know, man. Soul Partition seems pretty solid. It's that top thing, man. Non-land permanent. Doesn't say creature or planeswalker or anything like that. So we'll see, huh? Now we have 3 Adelines in here as well. And of course, we know the power of Adeline helps us go wide. It's going to be very, very chunky in this deck. So yeah, Adeline's sweet. Here's another new one, guys. 4 In the Trenches, a 3-mana enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So another way to buff a wide board state. Also has another ability on here, which is insane, for 5 and a white. And let's be real, guys. Sometimes it's not that difficult to get 6 mana, you know? Exile target non-land permanent you don't control until In the Trenches leaves the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery and only once. Dude, what? This card looks sweet. I am very excited to see if it's going to be worth a 4 of in a deck like this. Sometimes when you're playing cards like this, it's not worth having 4 of them because what ends up happening is sometimes you only see these types of cards and you don't see as many creatures as you would like. But then it also just has that extra ability on there too, so I don't know. I think it might be worth having all 4 of them. Speaking of worth having all 4 of course we got 4 wedding announcements in here. It helps us keep that wide board state and eventually buffs that wide board state when it flips into wedding festivity, so very nice. Got 2 Welcoming Vampires to keep our hand nice and stocked whenever 1 or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control. Draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So you could trigger it on your turn with like a recruitment officer and then trigger it on your opponent's turn by flashing in like a Resolute Reinforcements. So cool. A very good card. The last time we played White Weenie, we played Welcoming Vampire and it overperformed easily. Also, the flying is pretty good on it as well. On the very top end, we have a Mural Shield of Argiv. I still don't know how to pronounce that, but it's a 4 mana, 3/4. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. When Shield of Argiv attacks, create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. While this isn't a soldier deck, there are quite a few soldiers in here between Resolute Reinforcements, a Cathar Commando, and Recruitment Officer. And then also, of course, Mural is a soldier too. Well, yeah. So, sweet. I think having one of these on the top end is definitely going to be worth it. And yeah, it doesn't say, so where X is the number of soldiers you control, it doesn't say other soldiers. So yeah, very powerful card as far as I can tell. 23 total land in here. By the way, guys, at the top here, it says the total amount of land. I found that, and I already finished recording the first couple decks where I was literally counting the land. But yeah, right there, we have 23 total. 2 of them are Seed of the Empire, and we have another Mishra's Foundry in here. And I'm gonna keep saying it, I don't know. I don't know if we want 1. I don't know if we want 2. I don't know if we want 4. Like I'm assuming it's good, but I just don't know. I need to get test games, but yeah, I can't wait for this set to release. Like, for real, guys, there seems to be so much power in this upcoming set. I'm very excited to see what it's going to do to Standard overall. All right, enough rambling. Let's go on to the next one. Time to check out Gruul Artifacts. This is going to be a fun one, guys. So what do we got in the build? We have 3 Citadel Stalwarts. This is a 1 mana, 1/1. You can tap it, tap an untapped artifact or creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. Very powerful card. I'm interested to see how much play it's actually going to see, because I think it's very powerful, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess, right? We got 4 Haywire Mites. While it isn't a very aggressive creature in and of itself. It fits the artifact theme, which is going to be very important in here. And then it's just like a powerful creature. It's not aggressive, but it's powerful. 1 mana, 1/1. When Haywire Mite dies, you gain 2 life. Nice. You can pay a green, sacrifice Haywire Mite, exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Yeah. This card looks really good, doesn't it? And like I said, the fact that it's an artifact is definitely a bonus. We have 4 Iron Apprentice in here. It's going to fit the modified theme in the deck, but then also it's an artifact, so nice. We have 4 Teething Wormlets. Here's a new one. This is a 1 mana 1/1. It has Death Touch as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, which is not going to be hard to do at all. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Nice. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Teething Wormlet. Very cool, very nice. This is going to grow out of hand early on, and we have other creatures in here that's also growing alongside it, so awesome. Yeah, it's going to fit the modified theme too because of those counters, and yeah. Very powerful. I really don't know what else to say about this 1-drop. It seems pretty stacked to me. So we have 3 Hajar Loyal Bodyguards. This is a 2 mana with Gruul colors. It's a 3/3, so already pretty powerful. And then you can sacrifice Hajar, legendary creatures you control, get +1/+0, and gain indestructible until end of turn. So it doesn't necessarily fit any theme in here other than the fact that it's Gruul, but we do kind of sort of have a miniature legendary theme going on in here, and honestly a 2 mana 3/3 isn't going to hurt anything, so it's going to be interesting to try this card out. We got 3 Kami's Flares as our removal of the deck, and of course we got easy ways to modify our creatures, so extra damage to your opponent's face is pretty powerful. Now, a card to consider is actually the new card. I think it's called Bushwhack. It's a pretty fun one, but I couldn't find room for Bushwhack this time, and I guess that's kind of the honorable mention for this deck. It's definitely a card to look out for. I think Man, do I have it in any of the builds today? I don't believe so. So yeah, just a card to look out for. I think it's called Bushwhack, but yeah, I opted for the Kami's Flare as removal for this particular build. Okay, let's continue. We got 4 Patchwork Automatons, very powerful artifact. A 2-mana 1/1 with Ward 2 is great. And then whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automaton. So nice. It's going to grow right alongside that Teething Wormlet, and it's going to be very scary for the opponent. Kodama of the West Tree, modified creatures you control have trample. Being able to give the Wormlet and the Patchwork trample seems pretty important. Like, there are plenty of moments where the opponent is just able to chump block infinitely, right? Like wedding announcement tokens and all that. So Kodama seems like it'll be pretty good in here. And a 3-mana 3/3 with Reach is also just kind of no joke too. So very nice. We have a Myria, Scholar of Antiquity. This is a 3-mana 3/3 that came out in Dominaria United. You guys may never have seen this one before. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control, add a green mana. Cool. Tap 2 untap non-token artifacts you control. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Okay, I'm down. There are plenty of artifacts in here. I think this could do a lot. I think this is going to be worth having 3 of, but you never know. Once we actually get a chance to test out the deck, maybe we drop it down to 2, add more removal, maybe add that Bushwhack that I was talking about, right? So, pretty cool card though. We have 2 Simian Simulacrums. I apologize for all the new name pronunciations, guys. Oh my goodness. This is a 3-mana 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. That's pretty good, actually. It's a 2/1 creature, artifact creature. So it's going to be activating the Wormlet and the Patchwork, and then we're also going to be plugging in those 2 counters somewhere. Then it also has Unearth for 2 and 2 green as well. So yeah, seems pretty good. I believe Unearth, what it does is it brings it back from the grave, and then I believe it sacrifices itself at the beginning of the end step. I believe that's what it does. For some reason, it's not written on this particular card, but yeah, pretty cool card. On the top end, we have a couple Thundering Raiju, just a very powerful, very aggressive card that obviously works with the modified theme going on here. Oh, I forgot to go over a Root Wire Amalgam. We're kind of looking at this card as a 2-drop because it has Prototype for 1 and a green, can come out as a 2/3. But then it still has this ability on here for 3 and double green, which we can always ramp into with this deck, right? You can sacrifice Root Wire, create an XX colorless golem artifact creature token where X is 3 times Root Wire Amalgam's power. It gains haste until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. This looks pretty insane, doesn't it? Imagine being able to modify that as well at some point, and then it has trample from like the Kodama too. Now you can also just play this as a 5-mana 5/5 as well, which is pretty cool. So you could think of this as a top end creature or a 2-drop artifact, which is actually pretty insane, isn't it? Might be one of the most powerful cards in the deck. It might easily be the most powerful card in the deck, but we'll see, huh? Got 22 total land over here. One of them is Sanctum of Nature, and this enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. All of our legendary creatures in here have green in it, so nice. Now it taps to add green, or this bottom ability here, and we're not worrying about the meld on this card. We're just looking at it for this bottom ability. For 2 and double green, you can tap it, create a 2/2 green bear creature token, then mill 3 cards, activate only as a sorcery. So we'll see how good this actually is. I don't know if it's even worth having one in here, but it could be interesting. We have a single Who Endures. We of course have our Carplusian Forests, as well as our Rockfall Vales, and a single Mishra's Foundry, naturally, right? Like I said, I don't know how many of these we actually want. Like, do we want 2? Do we want 4? I have no clue. We'll find out once the set releases, I guess. Also, a single Crucible over here too. So yeah, this one's going to be really fun. I'm excited to try this one for sure. Speaking of which, guys, let me know down in the comments which one of these you would like to see first. I'm interested to see what everyone will say. Naturally, I'll start with a mono red build because that's what I do when every set releases. But yeah, onward to the next one. Let's see how many new toys mono black aggro gets to play with. Let's go over the deck. We got 3 cut downs. Early removal's important. We got 4 evolved sleepers. We know the power in this card. Couple Okiba Reckoner raids, still an underplayed card. Eventually it flips into a 2/2 with Menace that gives vehicles Menace, and we do have a single vehicle in here, which we'll go over in a second. Yeah, this is one of those aggro builds that knows how to walk the fine line between aggro and mid-range, and yeah, I think this one's gonna be pretty solid, but again, unable to test it. The set didn't come out yet, so we have a couple Infernal Grasp for more early removal and just more removal in general, honestly. Here's a new one, guys. Misery's Shadow. This is a 2-mana 2/2. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. Gross. It also has another ability on here that makes it worthwhile for 1 mana of any color. It doesn't even have to be a black mana, right? So Misery's Shadow gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Yeah. This card looks really good. I think it's going to be worth having 4 of them in here. We'll find out though. Like I said, unable to test with it. I think if I did test with it, I would probably be impressed, but we'll see. Another new card here. We got a couple Razor Lash Transmogrants. So this is a 2-mana 3/1 and it can't block. Uh-oh. That is a pretty big downside, but there's a really cool ability tacked onto the bottom here. Also, this is a zombie, so let's keep an eye on this card for a zombie build, huh? For 4 and double black, return Transmogrant from your graveyard to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. This ability costs 4 less to cast if an opponent controls 4 or more non-basic lands. Honestly, against decks like Control and stuff, it's not going to be difficult for this to only cost 2 mana to bring back. And it comes back with a +1/+1 counter too, so card looks pretty sweet. I think it'll be worth testing out 2 of them in here. Got a single Reckoner Bankbuster. Like I said, we're kind of walking that fine line between aggro and mid-range, and Bankbuster will help us play against other mid-range decks easily. Kind of keep up with it, right? As we are still an aggro deck, but sometimes you fall a little bit behind. Bankbuster can actually be quite aggressive too, so we'll see if that ever comes into play as well. I can't wait to test these decks, guys. Literally, I cannot wait for this set to release. I know I've said it in some of the other ones, but some people are skipping around, so you never know. I'm saying it again, so anyone who skipped to the mono black aggro knows how excited I am. We got 4 Tenacious Underdogs, very powerful card. Here's a new 3-drop, guys. Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. Don't know if I'm pronouncing any of that right, but Gix has arrived. This is a 3-mana 3/3. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to 1 or more opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, draw a card. Yeah. Seems really solid. We got 3 of them in here. It is a legendary creature, so I think it'll be a great way to draw cards. There's another ability on the bottom here. For 4 and 3 black, you can discard X cards, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. And honestly, it's not going to be too hard to get 7 mana, but is that really what you're going to want to do with it? Probably not, but it's on the card, so you might end up using it sometimes. Now we do have 3 Sheoldreds in here. Very powerful top end to an aggro build. Sheoldred is nasty, and it's a card that everyone always talks about, like, oh yeah, we need this in the deck because it can remove Sheoldred. So yeah, that kind of tells you the power there, huh? Couple Invoke Despairs. Speaking of power, right? Yeah, Invoke Despair is nasty and can close out games, especially when you're playing an aggro deck, so great top end. And then another top end, which we kind of count as a 3-drop here. This is a 7 mana, 7/5 Menace Lifelink with Ward. Pay life equal to Phyrexian Flesh Gorger's power. But it also has Prototype on here, so we can pay 3 mana for it. It's a 3 mana, 3/3 Menace Lifelink Ward. Pay life equal to Phyrexian Flesh Gorger's power. That seems nasty. That seems super stacked. Like, holy cow. So now the big question is, where's Trespasser? Where is the Graveyard Trespasser? I didn't have room for Graveyard Trespasser this time, guys, and I think it's okay. I think Phyrexian Flesh Gorger and Gix are going to be just good 3-drops in and of themselves. I think more 3-drops would definitely just push this into that mid-range zone, which I was trying to stay away from as well. So, yeah, 26 total land in here, which is super bizarre for an aggro build, but I do think that this is going to be super aggressive. A couple of them are Mishra's Foundry. We got a couple Abandoned Mires too, which is probably going to be pretty solid, and then the rest are swamps. So yeah, that's the deck. I'm curious to see how many different versions of mono black aggro there will be, because I'm almost certain there's going to be some form of it somewhere. I wonder how many of them are going to rock Misery Shadow. I do think that's one of the most powerful cards in the deck, but I might be wrong too. Sometimes I think weaker cards are really strong, and, you know, I'm probably not alone in that, but I don't know. It just seems really good, but I guess we'll find out when it comes time to play with these, huh? Let's go ahead and check out the next deck, huh? Here's another fun one. Izzet Constructs. Okay, what do we got in this build? A single experimental synthesizer. It's pretty good. I like it. I like having one of in decks like this. So we got 4 Iron Apprentice. Pretty powerful creature. We kind of went over it earlier too, and we've definitely seen this played many times. Here's a new one though. We got 4 Mishra's Research Desk. Now this is a 1 mana artifact where you can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice Mishra's Research Desk, exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. That seems pretty powerful, guys. And then it also has an Unearth ability here too, where you can pay 1 and a red, and you get to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield, exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, unearth only as a sorcery. So yeah, seems pretty good, and it doesn't seem like super aggressive, but being able to just find more cards to play happens to be pretty good. It being an artifact in this particular deck in and of itself will be aggressive, so we'll see. Got 4 Voltage Surge for removal, and it obviously works with the artifact theme here. We got 4 Enthusiastic Mechanauts. Now this is a 2 mana 2/2 with Izzet colors up there. It has flying, which is good. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Nice. That can make Iron Apprentice free, and it can make Mishra's Research Desk free as well, which is pretty sick. We got 4 Patchwork Automatons. Naturally, it's a very powerful card. 2 mana 1/1 Ward 2 is no joke. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automaton. So it's going to put in a lot of work. We have 4 Surge Engines, and the card may look a little bit slow, but I think this card looks nasty. This is a 2 mana 3/2 with Defender. You can pay a blue. Surge Engine loses Defender and gains this creature can't be blocked. Okay. For 2 and a blue, Surge Engine becomes blue and has base power and toughness 5/4. Activate only if Surge Engine doesn't have Defender. And then for 4 and 2 blue, which I don't know how often you get to this level, draw 3 cards, activate only if Surge Engine is blue and only once. Dude, this card looks stacked. Imagine having the Mechanaut on the board already and being able to cast this for 1 and then use that blue mana immediately. Just a 1 mana 3/2 that can't be blocked at that point. Seems pretty gross. And then, like, you know, anything. You could have Patchwork Automaton on the board. The fact that this is an artifact is insane. Like, Surge Engine looks ridiculous. What else do we got here, guys? We got 3 Mechanized Warfare, 3 mana enchantment. If a red or artifact source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. What that could do is turn a fully charged Voltage Surge into a 1-mana Kill Shieldred. So that's pretty sick, but then also it's just going to help us do a ton of extra damage. Like everything in here, like Mechanized Warfare, just being able to fly in with our enthusiastic Mechanaut, like that's an extra damage right then and there too. It is red, but then it's also an it is an artifact creature too, so yeah. Okay, we have a single Mishra, Excavation Prodigy. This is a 3-mana 2/1 with haste. Okay. You can pay 1 and tap it, discard a card, draw a card. Okay. Whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, add 2 red mana. This ability triggers only once each turn. This is kind of in here just to test it out. I think it's going to be okay overall. I think since it has haste, being able to use this ability instantly sounds pretty cool, but we'll see. It also is going to pair well with one of our top end cards, which we'll go over in just a second. We have 3 Saheeli Filigree Masters. I apologize for the pronunciations, guys. Hopefully I got this one right. This is the first time I'm actually seeing this Planeswalker. This is a 4 mana, 3 loyalty Planeswalker with a +1 here, where you get to scry 1. You may tap an untapped artifact you control. If you do draw a card, that's super easy to do in this build. There's a -2 here where you can create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. They gain haste until end of turn. Seems like a really powerful -2, honestly. But check this one out. -4. You get an emblem. Yeah, only -4, right? So you can immediately go +1 on this and then next turn -4, okay? You get an emblem with artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Holy cow, guys, that seems nasty. That seems disgusting. Oh, buddy. I think all 3 of these abilities look really good. So yeah, the 4-drop spot is pretty competitive here because we also have 2 Tezzeret's Betrayer of Flesh. This is a 4 mana, 4 loyalty Planeswalker. The first activated ability of an artifact you control, of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. Okay. Has a +1 here, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. So that works with Mishra, which is pretty cool. -2 here, target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has a base power and toughness 4/4, which actually can be pretty aggressive overall. Making something a 4/4 and being able to swing in with it is pretty good. Also has a -6 here. You get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card, which is obviously very nasty and very, very powerful. Now on the top end here, we have some cards that can actually be cheaper than they actually are, right? So Blitz Automaton is a 7 mana 6/4 with haste. Looks a little janky until you realize that it has prototype too. So for just 3 mana, it's a 3/2 haste artifact, which seems pretty good, seems pretty solid. And sometimes you're gonna have enough mana to go ahead and blitz this down as a 6/4 with haste because you know, you're going to be making your artifact spells cheaper with the Mechanaut and potentially the Saheeli here too. So yeah, not bad, a couple of them. Then we also have the Skitter Beam Battalions. This is a 9 mana 4/4 trample haste, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. Oh my goodness, now that's very expensive. You never know, we might get that amount of mana in here, but probably not, right? We're looking at the prototype here. This is a 5 mana 2/2 trample haste. And when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. So getting 3 2/2 trample haste artifacts on the board actually seems pretty good for 5 mana. So having one of these is probably solid. 23 total land in the deck here. Couple of them are Mishra's Foundry, naturally. Again, I don't know how many of these we want in these decks. I have a Soaring City, Crucible of Defiance. Of course, we got the Reeves, the coasts, and a mixture of islands and mountains here too. So This deck looks super fun. Guys, I can't wait for the set. Oh no, I'm going to be saying it for the rest of the video now. But yeah, I really, really can't wait to play with these decks. Ah, geez. Okay, let's go over the last build of the evening. All right, it's time to go over the last build of the evening, Boros Modified. But first, let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this style of content. I thought it would be worth taking a little bit of extra time putting together some aggro builds for the Brothers War and getting this video out to you guys instead of my normal content. Since the Brothers War is coming out so soon, I don't know, I just thought it would be fun. Yeah, let me know, or drop the video a like. That's a great way to let me know as well. So yeah, what do we got in this build here? Well, we got a single hammer hand. It's going to work with the modified theme. It's a very powerful aura overall. If I could have found room for more, I would have added more, but there's some other cards in here that I wanted to play a little bit more with. Got a couple Hopeful Initiates, great one drop. It can train, so it modifies itself nicely, very powerful. Got 4 Commando Faces Kakuzan, the most important one drop in the deck probably. I don't think I have to go over the power level of this card, right? Here's a new one, guys, Yotian Frontliner. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize again for all the new card pronunciations. I always butcher them the first couple weeks, but yeah, this is a 1 mana 1/1. Whenever Frontliner attacks, another target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and then it has Unearth for a white mana. So we get to return this card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and then we exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, and then we can only unearth as a sorcery. So while this doesn't play super well with the modified theme, there is another card in here that I really want to try Frontliner with, which we'll go over in just a second. You guys can probably guess, but yeah. So we have Bard, Argivian Recruiter here. This is a 2 mana 2/2 with Boros colors up there. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So yeah, that does work with the Frontliner, where this does say +1/+1 until the end of turn. So this one says at the beginning of your end step, if you control that creature with power greater than its base power. So yeah, I believe those pair nicely together. That would be a pretty cool turn 1 and turn 2. But then also just going like turn 1 Commando into turn 2 Bard sounds pretty good too, right? And we do have new land in here that'll help us do that easier, which is awesome. Just a great way to go wide with this card too. And buffing that wide board state could be important. We got a couple Intrepid Adversaries. Powerful 2-drop works well with everything in here, right? Since it's a modified deck, our removal is Kami's Flare. We got 4 of them. Very powerful card. Pinging that opponent's face for 2 is very important. Rodha's Firebrand is another one that Frontliner is going to work beautifully with, being able to give this +1/+1 and then use that Firebrand's ability where target creature defending player controls with power less than Rodha Firebrand's power can't block this turn. Seems pretty good, huh? Also has that domain ability down there, which we don't use too often, but it's worth noting. Okay, we have a single Angel Fire Ignition here, an underplayed 3 mana sorcery where you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. So works with modified, right? It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until the end of turn. This also has a flashback of 2, a red and a white. So, oh my goodness, definitely worth having one of these in here, right? Another new card, which we went over a little bit earlier, Siege Veteran, a 3 mana 2/2 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Nice. We know how powerful that ability is, but then it also has another ability here. Whenever another non-token soldier you control dies, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So very powerful card. Frontliner is a soldier. Bard is a soldier as well. Excuse me, guys. I believe those are the only 2 soldiers in here, and then as well as a Siege Veteran, but this is another non-token soldier. So yeah, Frontliner, Bard are the soldiers of the deck. It's not a soldier deck by any means, but those do work with Siege Veteran is what I'm getting at, right? On the top end, naturally, we have 4 Thundering Raijus, just helps us close out so many games. How many games have you won with Thundering Raiju? Like, for real. A lot, right? Me too. Very powerful card. Oh, we also have another top end here, but we want to consider this one of the 2-drops of the build. So this is a 5 mana, 4/5 Vigilance. You can pay a mana, tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on target assembly worker you control. So this is an assembly worker. You can go ahead and put that counter on itself because it doesn't say another target assembly worker, right? That's pretty cool. But it has prototype here. For 2 mana, 1 and a white, it can come down as a 2/2 Vigilance, and then it has that same ability. So it's able to modify itself, which seems pretty cool. I definitely can't wait to test this card out. It might be a little slow for what we want to do, but overall, just, yeah, I think it looks pretty solid, huh? Sometimes it can grow beyond what the opponent wants it to grow beyond, you know? The fact that it has Vigilance, so you can attack with it and then still use its ability, I don't know, man. Seems pretty good, huh? Okay, mana base, guys. We got 23 total mana here, and we got the new Battlefield Forge here, which is what every Boros player has been waiting for. It's going to be a very solid land, and it's going to probably bring about many Boros aggro decks because there are a lot of ways to put these style decks together, huh? Couple Seed of the Empires for extra removal, a single Mishra's Foundry, and once again, I don't know how many Mishra's Foundries we actually want to play in decks like this. Honestly, I don't know how much this is actually going to hold back the beginning turns. I don't think it's going to, especially since we're rocking Frontliner as an additional 1-drop. But yeah, we have a single Crucible of Defiance, our Sundown Pass, as well as mostly mountains and some plains. So that's that, guys. Yeah, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the lists that I was able to put together. These are definitely the ones that I'm most excited to try out as far as aggro goes. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.